Hello, and thank you for joining me for the Vampire Talk Show. I'm your host, Valaine. Val to my friends. My roommate discovered my coffin under the concrete floor of the basement in her new house and woke me up from a 100-year nap. Now I'm reconnecting with old friends, making new ones, and of course, making a podcast. I want to talk about something. Humans and their fear of ghosts. The Black Box Theater that Allie works at is notoriously haunted. Everyone who works there or spends a significant amount of time there has some kind of experience. Just the other night, I was invited to sit in on a rehearsal, and at the end of the night, the actors went into the basement to put away costumes when the lights started to flicker. Not in a casual, shoddy electrical way, but in a ravey, getting your attention way. The actors quickly came upstairs after audibly freaking out. When asked about what happened, one of the actors told us that the ghost children were messing with them and had to sternly ask them to stop. And they did. I didn't see the problem. They asked the ghost children to desist with an annoying thing that they were doing and stopped right away. I implore you to search your memory for when that worked on a living child. The theater has two ghost children, a little boy and a little girl that have been heard and seen, and they like to play with the puppets from Avenue Q. The favorite story about the children was the time they were playing with a helium balloon that was upstairs and then later found downstairs. Maybe the helium was degrading, but everyone swears it was one of the weirdest instances of ghost activity. Although, there's something about very young ghosts. Here's the thing about kid ghosts. I don't like the idea of them. I know they're out there and they're very good at haunting because they know how to have fun. However, the whole child death thing puts it off for me. Usually ghost children are kind of depressing, especially in EVP form. Nothing chills you to the bone more than a child asking for something they can't have because they shuffled off their mortal coil. Anyway, these particular ghost children of the Black Box Studio are not strangers to me. I've had run-ins with them before, and they are sweet and constantly playing, but their favorite thing is scaring adults. When the actors arrived upstairs, they had, to their horror, forgotten to turn out the lights and dreaded going back down into the depths with the ghosts. I went down and talked to the children as I turned off each light. I laughed and told them, "Good one. You really got them." However, they are very scared now and can't do their job. You can always talk to me, but please leave these scaredy actors alone, huh? I believe they had already departed because their work was done. And it's no fun to scare a vampire. We can't be scared. It's part of the lore. All right, let's get on with the show. My guest tonight, you've seen his fingerprints all over the horror genre from Exists, Altered, and Last Night at Terrace Lanes. And now he's getting into podcasting with a new audio drama, my personal favorite genre, called Black Velvet Fairies. Please welcome Jamie Nash.
Hey, Val, I'm creeped out by your story, but great to be here.
Yes, I'm so sorry to kick things off with, child ghosts and whatnot, but, it is what it is. I'm so glad you're here, Jamie. I have to commend you for doing something that was very common in the 1920s, back when I was still on the scene, audio dramas. And, theater of the mind and whatnot. What drew you to this kind of medium for your art?
Yeah, I think it was, I've always wanted to do one. I think I'm working with the folks that made the Blair Witch Project. And the fact that podcasts really are kind of like like Blair Witch was kind of a documentary found footage thing. A lot of podcasts really, the real life ones really are that. So I think this particular subject that we did just blended right in with that kind of, is it real? Is it fiction kind of idea?
Oh, yes. And between real and fiction, that's right where I live.
Yes.
Basically. So I appreciate dancing on that line for sure. So how is writing a podcast different from writing for screen?
Yeah, I found it's not too different. Obviously, everything has to be audio as opposed to visual, which, is a huge thing. But you can surprisingly do a lot of things in audio that you can do visually because people are so savvy of what's going on. They can kind of, close their eyes and use their imagination to kind of fill in the gaps from the sounds they hear. So while a car chase or something may not be as thrilling, and while dialogue might be the bigger thing that you have to kind of work with, they definitely tend to be a little bit more dialogue driven. I think you can do a lot of the things you can use, do in screenwriting. You just have to do them slightly differently.
Hmm. I suppose you use soundscapes and whatnot, sound effects and Foley work. How does that process look? Do you do voice acting first, or that sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, you start out, and it's the most fun of the project because I've directed some feature films and things like that as well. But I loved directing a audio drama because it's pure, basically 9 to 5 for 5 days a week. It was just straight acting. We didn't have to wait for the lights to move. We didn't have to worry about whether somebody was there because we all worked from our homes. It was just action cut, and you do the voices first. So basically it's like doing a straight up radio play. You just concentrate on the acting, but you get multiple takes. It doesn't have to be live.
Hmm. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about what Black Velvet Fairies is all about?
Yeah, sure thing. So Black Velvet Fairies, it's about a woman named Lucy who gets this mysterious call about a dead grandmother that she barely knew. And the grandmother claims that she has something for her, and it's somewhere in her house, and she'll know it when she sees it. So, kind of called to this adventure, she goes to her grandmother's house, which she hasn't been to since she was a kid. And she discovers, kind of hidden in the floorboards, some of this is a spoiler, first episode stuff, hidden on the floorboards, some kind of mysterious paintings of fairies. And these mysterious paintings, when I say they're on black velvet fairies, and when I say mysterious paintings, they're not like the Tinkerbell kind of paintings. They're kind of grim. They almost look warlike and serious, and almost of a rather serious, almost, I'll say, documentary subject matter. So this basically puts her on a quest to figure out what's real, where these things came from, and that's what our story pretty much follows, is her quest.
Wow. In terms of haunted objects, because that kind of fits in here a little bit, do you have any personal experience with anything haunted?
I love paranormal stuff and things like that. My wife is very much into it. I don't personally have a ton of experience with it, but I do have one haunted house kind of thing that I once experienced. I was on a ghost hunt once for a movie,
Hmm.
and I was the producer of this particular project. It was for a movie we made called Lovely Molly here in Frederick,
Yes.
and the movie was, I'm sorry, Hagerstown. We made last night at Terrace Lanes in Frederick, but we made Hagerstown, which is close by.
Yeah.
Was Lovely Molly, and it was this old farmhouse, and it was really creepy. And there were all kinds of stories about the woods around it. There was like a tree that was half dead but still grew or something. There's all kinds of really strange stuff. But people would hear at night working there, they'd hear a baby crying. There was like an old slave quarters actually on the premises. And they would hear, if they were working there late at night, they'd hear this baby crying. So first of all, I'll kind of skip to the interesting part, but I was on a ghost hunt, and I experienced a few things on the ghost hunt. I remember for some reason, they were all kind of focused around me.
Oh.
There was some things shaking next to me. Like I remember there was a heater that was turned off that started to shake kind of violently.
Hmm.
We got some EVPs with, I can't remember what the name is now. I should remember, but we got an EVP with a certain name. I brought a psychic in the next day, and they found two interesting things. One is they said the exact same name that was on that EVP, and I'm not even sure we processed it till afterwards. So it was completely, and I'm more or less a skeptic. So this was like, I'm kind of like, yeah, I don't buy that, but this was something that actually I can attest to that happened. The other thing that we had was the psychic went in that particular slave quarters, and she said, "There's a baby here. I sense a baby." And then something happened in the fire. Something was thrown in the fire.
Oh no!
And yeah, it was pretty. Going back to your horrible ghost stories that aren't as fun as, but anyway, it was kind of chilling. So she connected with what they saw, completely in a vacuum. And then the weirdest part of all, the ghost hunters, when they were processing some of their photos, there was a window, and in this particular window, there was somebody like staring out of the window in those quarters. Mm-hmm. So it was all kind of centered around the quarters. That's about as no haunted objects, but that's about as close as I come to like an actual ghost story that I have.
Oh, yes. Well, in Hagerstown, that's actually where I am currently.
Oh, wow.
And that's where the theater is that I was talking about. And I don't know if you know this, but there are a series of tunnels beneath Hagerstown.
Oh, no, I had no idea.
So Hagerstown was one of those hubs for the Prohibition era for speakeasies. And actually, there's a speakeasy in the theater. And there's a sealed off tunnel. So there's a theory that Hagerstown is quite haunted, and the entities like to use the tunnels as a channel to get around.
Oh, that's cool.
Very cool. Yes, I am dying to get into those tunnels, but have not had the opportunity yet.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, when getting familiar with your work, it seems like a lot of found footage and slashers and everything. Why fairies now? That's what I would like to know. It seems like a far departure.
Yeah, well, I will say, so I'll say a couple things. One is this was a world conceived by my friends who they have a much bigger world. So the podcast is one small part of a much larger world that will eventually have a novel. It has a board game. It has all kinds of things. So they're doing it as a complete world building kind of experience. And it's really cool. And you can check it out. There's a site called emeraldanvil.com, which is kind of the whole site. I almost discourage you, if you're going to listen to the podcast, listen to the podcast first, because it might spoil some stuff if you go there first. But anyway, it's a part of a big universe. So they brought me on to the big universe. That's part of the reason why I worked with this. However, I will say that especially the approach I took to this material, and they as well guided me through, was we actually had somebody, a paranormal investigator, Greg Newkirk, on the show.
Oh,
He's actually on the podcast. He's on episode 2, and there are a lot of paranormal ties in the show. So if you like paranormal stuff, if you like ghost hunting, if you like things like that, it's totally what this show is kind of about. But to his point, and he mentions this on the show, is that, he says that, and it's a theory that's come long before him, that, fairies from years ago, like everybody kind of believed in them, and they were kind of the paranormal investigation of the day, 150 years ago. And if you look at it, the things that tie them, the things that people said happened with fairies, are similar to what people say happened with ghosts now, and are similar to what people happen with UFOs. And that's kind of the approach this podcast took. So for me, all of this stuff is kind of unified into one big thing.
Yes, I too am all about the unified theory of paranormal entities. I do believe that, Sasquatch might be a ghost or a UFO. I mean, even something like the Hopkinsville Goblins, which Newkirk knows all about, they might have been aliens that had
Right.
landed there and just went into the caves, and now people call them goblins. And I actually really love this unified theory of paranormal entities because it explains a lot. Um, and where you see one, you usually see another.
Hmm.
Any sightings of Sasquatch are usually compounded with lights in the sky or lights, appearing and disappearing in the forests and whatnot. And yes, I mean, I've had a Bigfoot on the show. I've had ghosts on the show.
Oh,
So I know for a fact that they're real. We just have to, convince the humans.
absolutely.
So if fairies were trying to lure you into
Hmm.
the fairy realm,
Hmm.
what would they need to use in order to get you into, a rabbit hole or a mushroom circle or what have you?
Oh, that's an interesting question. What would they need? Because I am the type of person that would rather stay home than go out. Like it takes a lot to lure me out of my house. Um, I don't know. It would probably take a leprechaun with a pot of gold because if I could, then take that gold and convert it and make a movie or something, that's probably what it would take. So, and I believe leprechauns probably just are fairies as well. So it's
Yes, a,
quite
a
possible.
type of fairy, and actually, we've talked about leprechauns on the show before, and they're just the biggest assholes on the planet. They are just terrible
Per-
little creatures.
Perfect. Yeah, you should have had a leprechaun on being it's almost St. Patrick's Day. That would have been a good, or have you?
No, not yet. And I actually, Allie has been trying her best to try and get a leprechaun on the show, but those buggers, they're so hard to nail down.
Yeah.
And so hopefully, being so close to St. Patrick's Day, maybe we'll find one passed out
Yeah.
under a tree.
I, yeah, you have to go to the Leprechaun Union, I think.
Yes,
You can certainly find one there.
absolutely.
Hmm.
What kind of audio drama podcasts have you been influenced by? Like when I heard about this audio drama, the first thing that came to my mind was the Black Tapes.
I listened to the Black Tapes. A couple friends of mine, and actually one of the producers involved with this, Mike Manello, he made one called Video Palace. And Video Palace is one I highly recommend. It's it's about the game Polybius. Have you ever heard of Polybius? Which
I
was
have
in
not.
it's Polybius is this kind of crypt, uh, I don't know, creepy pasta. It's not a creepy pasta, but it's like that exists in that where people think it's real, but there was an arcade game that supposedly made people go mad back in the 80s. And Video
Oh, how
Palace,
Lovecraftian.
yeah, Video Palace is about that. And it's really well done. I think Shudder produced it.
Oh,
Um, so they're two. I listened to when I got involved in this particular one. And I've been kind of dabbling. I almost pulled the trigger on a couple different podcasts like this in the past. So I've been kind of following all the horror ones, and they're usually the found footage ones. Whatever you call them, but they're usually those that are kind of pretend to be real or whatever. I mean, not that they're hoaxes, but you know what I'm saying.
I know what you're
Down
saying.
there. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Once again, writing that line between real and
Hmm.
fiction. Yes, that is the best place to be, if you ask me. Second guessing your own reality is almost better than drugs sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
Is there anything else on the horizon for you? Are you getting back into film and, after your foray into podcasting?
Yeah, well, not quite on the horizon, but looking back about a month ago, I directed a movie called Last Night at Terrace Lanes.
Mhm.
Uh, it was it's a bowling alley kind of cult invasion movie. It's a lot of fun, and it's out now. It came out in January, so it's still kind of fresh. It's you can still get it, and you can get that wherever you rent any movies like Apple and Amazon Prime and things like that. It's and it was shot in a bowling alley in Frederick, Maryland, that had shut down like about a week prior to the time I learned about this project. And
Mhm.
we basically had 2 months to write, shoot, get out of there, get done before they kind of gutted all the lanes and things like that. But it's kind of a fun, slightly comedic, it's fun in tone, even though a lot of people die and there's an evil cult. but it's
Yes.
still fun. You can still have laughs, even through the carnage.
Yes, there are some people that don't like to mix the two, horror and comedy. However,
Sure.
I find that they're quite similar in
Uh,
almost a visceral reaction, screaming and laughing, crying, that sort of thing.
I'm with you. I'm with
Yes,
you. Hmm.
yes, I love the horror comedy genre for sure. And actually, my producer Allie told me that she used to bowl there. Uh,
Oh,
yes, she used to go there after her shift at Barnes and Noble with her cohorts.
so well, the cool thing she should definitely watch because it really is kind of the last testament to that bowling alley. And I kind of made it a point to shoot every square inch of that bowling alley. Like every piece of it is used. Wherever you've gone in that bowling alley is used. And I kind of wrote the last night, that's why it's called Last Night at
Mhm.
Terrace Lanes. Not that I wrote it. Adam Caesar, who's a accomplished novelist who wrote Clown in a Cornfield, he wrote it. But as I was there, I was learning things about the closing and the community and bowling in general, and all that stuff went right into the script and right into the movie. So people that even people that hate horror movies that did bowl there, they should watch it because it's their bowling alley, and it's even though there's a lot of blood on it by the end of it,
Yes,
it's still their bowling alley, and they'll get a kick of seeing their bowling alley.
absolutely. I mean, from what Allie told me, uh, basically, when the bowling alley was announced that it was going to be closed, it was a big shock because it seemed like it was very popular and whatnot, but also it seemed like the transition from blue collar to
Mhm.
a more affluent white collar sort of community had to do, like, as soon as that bowling alley closed, that was the final linchpin in like the more
Mhm.
in the socioeconomic sort of change of Frederick. So
Right. Yeah,
yeah,
I think they were going to build condos on it or something, which is also in the story. That's the we kind of just threw that right in there.
I love that. I love
Yeah,
that. A little bit of truth, a little bit of fiction. Uh,
absolutely.
oh, well, my friend, I am so glad that you are here on the show and that we got to talk about Black Velvet Fairies. I am going to hop now into paranormal gossip.
Perfect.
Recently, a monolith was discovered on a hillside in Wales. A jogger happened upon the silver-colored, 10-foot-tall triangular object. No one seems to know where it came from. But I do. Through my network of whisperers and gossips, it seems as though the Twylith Teg, please excuse my pronunciation, Welsh people, it's been a while since I've spoken Old English. The Twylith Teg are to blame. The fairy folk of the Welsh Hills are known for their hijinks and human lures. However, this is a human lure gone wrong. They were trying to create a tower of Stanley Steel tumbler mugs after the craze they saw all over the socials. But when trying to transmute the very rock into these mugs, they realized the fad had passed. Instead of de-transmuting, they just left a monolith, and they're actually quite pleased with the reaction it's getting now. So, that's where that came from. Anyway, if you have a bit of gossip, a misconnection, or a personals ad to share with the show, please email thevampiretalkshow@gmail.com or slide into my DMs on Twitter, Facebook, Insta, or TikTok. I don't know for how long with TikTok, but we'll see. So thank you, Jamie Nash, for being on the show. Where can people find you and find everything that you're doing?
Yeah, the best place to find me is on Twitter or X or whatever we call it at Jamie_Nash. And for Black Velvet Fairies, it's everywhere that you would find podcasts. So just go put it in the search right now. Just type in Black Velvet Fairies, hit the subscribe button, listen to a couple episodes. I think your listeners will especially dig it.
Yes, I think they will too. And I cannot wait to listen to it myself. I love a good audio drama. All right, well, that's it for the show tonight, kiddies. And remember, embrace the dark, the strange, and unusual. It just may embrace you back. Thank you to Jamie Nash for being our guest today. Please consider becoming a Patreon member of the show. You can be a Baby Bat Sticker Club member where you get stickers every month, or you can be a Tarot Speakeasy member where you can get a tarot reading and tarot cards sent to you every month. Please subscribe on patreon.com/thevampiretalkshow. This has been an Opus Nox Media production. To find out more, go to opusnoxmedia.com.